George Orwell was most well known for two books: Animal Farm, which he wrote in 1945, and then 1984, which he wrote 4 years later in 1949. Now, these are two beautiful books. I highly recommend that you read them, especially if politics and governance as a topic interests you. But even if not, even if you're just looking for two good fiction books to read, I would highly recommend reading these masterpieces. But here's a catch: I recommend that you read 1984 first and then read Animal Farm. I recommend reading them in the reverse order in which they were written by the author. And I have some really good reasons for it, and that is what I want to share in today's video. So stay with me. Hello, good people of the internet. You are tuned into the Unlearning Playground. I am Chetan Narang, and if you're new here, I post regular videos around the project of improving the way you think about and understand life, which is why a lot of my videos are actually inspired by all of these books and, of course, my meditations on whatever I keep reading. So if you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe because, let's be honest, I know you want a better YouTube feed now. Let's get into the main video now. Now, 1984, which is the first book that I recommend you read, is a beautiful novel. It is a beautiful depiction of a dystopian society, which Orwell portrays beautifully. People are living in a society which is under the control of a totalitarian government, and this government is totalitarian to the T. I mean, they control what you eat, what you drink, what you say, what you think, what you process, what you buy, etc., etc., host of other things. And he does a beautiful job of explaining all of that. Now, if I be honest with you, there are some parts of this book which will downrightly scare you. I mean, it's horrific, the conditions these people are living in the dystopian society that he portrays. But when you're reading this in 2025 or in whatever year you end up reading it, I'm certain that you'll be able to draw a lot of parallels with your present reality. Because this book was written in 1949. It's been more than 70 years since then. And of course, a lot of that was conjecture, what Orwell was writing. But a lot of it has also become true. I mean, if you look at your present reality itself, I'm sure this word has come across sometime on your social media, that especially around the time of elections, that this particular party will actually end up forming a totalitarian government. This particular party is already oppressing people. It's already, there is no freedom of speech, etc., etc. So a lot of things that you will read in this book, you will actually be able to draw parallels with what is happening in the world right now, what is happening with your own country right now. And not just around government, by the way. You will be able to see how big tech, the way big tech companies, social media companies actually control a lot of the data that goes into the system, goes outside into the minds of the viewers. They control a lot of that, and in that sense they also control a lot of ways in which you actually end up thinking about the world. So it's scary how a book written about dystopia is actually quite true about the modern world as well. But here is the catch now. I recommend that you read this first because I'm sure when you will be able to draw a lot of parallels with your present reality, a lot of mature readers amongst you would also want to cultivate the thought, then how do we go about changing the government? How do we go about changing politics? How do we go about changing the entire mess we are living in right now so that we don't end up making this a complete reality? And that thought is especially why I recommend you read Animal Farm right after reading this. Now, Animal Farm is a small little book. It's just 100 odd pages. It fits in the size of my palm. So it's a very small book, and it's a beautiful book. Without going into too much details and destroying the story for you, I'll just tell you that this is a satire, and in this satire, a group of well-meaning people overthrow the government that they were living in right now, with the idea of this government is an oppressive government, which it was. This government is taking away our freedoms, which it was. So they overthrow that government and they form a new government with the pure intentions of actually constituting a new way of governance wherein they will not do what these people were doing. However, they eventually end up doing almost similar things. If not the same thing, they end up doing almost similar things just under a different mask. And that is why I recommend that you read this, because see, if you actually have the mature thought of wanting to change the system, wanting to change the politics, and wanting to change the governance, one more mature thought that you should have is how do you reduce your chances of actually committing the same or similar mistakes that the previous people did? And that is why I highly recommend that you read 1984 first and then Animal Farm. Now, see, when you read a dystopian novel and you're able to draw parallels with your present society, your present reality, it's quite disheartening, honestly. And one of the very pure thought that turns up is to blame everything on the system, to blame the government, to blame capitalism, etc., and also to want to rectify it. Now, these are all very pure thoughts, especially the parts about wanting to rectify it. And one more pure thought that turns up for a lot of people is that if I was given a chance, I would create a damn utopia. I would make a perfect system. That's another pure thought, but it's also a very incomplete thought. Why so? Because unless you have gone to the root of your own thinking, unless you've introspected and become more self aware to the extent that you can understand and realize how these people who erected dystopian governments were not too different from you, that dark part of the human psyche is present in each of us, and in that sense all of us are more similar than different. Unless you have introspected and touched that part of your psyche which would make you aware of your own biases, your own triggers, your own delusions, your own illusions, unless you have done all of that work, what will happen is what happened in Animal Farm. You would go into the revolution with the idea of actually engineering a utopia out of the mess that these people have created. But because you do not understand your own biases, because you do not understand the way your own mind almost wants to force your stories and your already well conceived decisions on the reality, unless you have touched that part of your psyche and unless you become comfortable with the discomfort that this entire process brings, unless you actually do that, I don't think you can erect a utopia even in your home, let alone erecting a utopia in your country or in the world at large. And that is why, that is the entire message behind this entire video. Read these two books, and then I would highly recommend becoming more self-aware. Because unless you do that, that mature part of your psyche which wants to change things, it will never find the absolute utopian expression that it could have found. And that is the importance of being more self-aware. And to top it all off, I would now want to recommend 3 resources where you can actually game change your understanding and your action plans about everything that we talked about in this video. The first resource would be the Beyond Politics video series on the Unlearning Playground. It is a 4-part series I recorded with Rocco Jarman earlier in 2024. It's game changing, and we talk a lot about how we need to grow beyond politics now, not just solve politics, but go beyond it, and especially go beyond the petty politics that we are playing almost as a society right now. The second resource I would recommend is my playlist on understanding human cognitive biases. It is one of the earliest playlists I launched on the Unlearning Playground. I honestly think I want to go back and add a lot more videos to that playlist, but even now, that playlist as of Feb 2025 is a game-changing playlist for which will elevate your level of critical thinking and your level of understanding of your own psyche to an extent which you want to be, where your mature psyche wants to be. And the third resource I would recommend is my playlist, which I have titled Consciousness Upgrade for the Modern Human. It is another 5-part series I recorded with Rocco Jarman, and again, metacognition, spiritual growth, human consciousness, the way we understand ourselves. This is a game-changing series. I would highly recommend checking this out. And of course, if you're planning on checking out any of these videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I would want to be personally more connected with you and learn more from you if you have more recommendations as to what kind of videos I should be uploading more on the Unlearning Playground. So that's it, you good people of the internet. Thank you for tuning with me till the very end. And I'll see you in the playground soon again. Until next time, peace out.